Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds, and I'm here today with Greg Cornelius. Greg has been a dear friend of mine for many years and has been a huge proponent of recovery in the Huntsville area and has done a lot for, I know, His Way, and I appreciate that, Greg. And I wanted to, start just with you sharing a little bit with our audience just about your background. Why are you passionate about recovery? What's your background on this? And so we can better understand kind of where you're coming from, what your journey's been.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and my thoughts on recovery, my experience. I've lived in Alabama all my life, and from the South down here, my background with the spiritual walk was limited here and there. My parents were not big into the church, but we did have neighbors. I went to Vacation Bible School. I visited 3 or 4 different churches growing up. Mm-hmm. My mother remarried a man, and he owned nightclubs and bars in Huntsville. And I was exposed to that environment early on, and actually worked in them, washing glasses when I was 10, 11. I was exposed to that environment. When I was 15, 16, I was involved with a young girl, and we were in the church, and I thought that was the answer to life. I was on my way. Mm-hmm. But then I got involved with drinking. I started smoking marijuana. And by the time I was 18, I was I spent 30 days out at Crestwood in treatment. I got out of there. I thought I was pretty well done with it, but then again, the environment, the exposure in college, back to drinking and drugging, and eventually just become a full-blown alcoholic. And so as I went along, I was exposed to a 12-step program just a little bit, but I could never deeply involve myself with it because drugs and alcohol were just stronger than my commitment to recovery. Mm-hmm. I still attended a church service here and there as I went through, but eventually I got quite a few DUIs and served some time because of that. And that led me to an outpatient program, which led me to the 12-step program. And then from there, it was right after that I actually met you. Mm-hmm. And then from there, my recovery began. Mm-hmm.
And when you say 12-step program, for those who are not aware, you talking about AA specifically?
Yes, Alcoholics Anonymous. We do have Narcotics Anonymous in Huntsville, but where I lived and the people that I knew exposed me to the local Huntsville group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there I found some really strong people in recovery that helped me. I knew a couple people there. I felt comfortable there, and I've been a member of that same group now for 24 years.
Wow. That's awesome. I know, we originally met through a group called the Bridge Group, and we had a kind of a Christ-centered Bible study, kind of recovery-focused meeting that we got involved with, and that we met through. Maybe you can share more about. Okay, so that was about 20 some years ago, then, right? So, what's happened in your recovery journey since you got in the Bridge Group and since you've been active in AA now for 24 years? What have you seen happen in your recovery during this last 24 years?
Well, when I was in March of 97 is when I got sober. And that summer, I was starting to go to an AA group, Huntsville group, because New Horizons, I had to do that for 1 year. No, pardon me, I had to do that for 10 weeks. I ended up volunteering there for a year and then for 7 years after that. But in that early term time frame of the summer of 97, as I was getting sober, it was after 3 or 4 months, I just really, I'd listened to some AA speaker tapes, and I just wanted to, I don't know, God just gave me the desire, the want to really want to live out a 12-step way of life. There's a lot of principles in that. And so as I was exposed more and more to it, got to learn a little bit more because I didn't know a lot about AA prior to that. I had a lot of contempt for it because of my wife at that time was going through it and not doing well, and so I had a lot of contempt. But as I learned more about that program, I developed an open mind to the church, those in the church. My first 6-8 months, I was really strong in the working through the steps. It was soon there afterwards that me and my wife at the time went to Highlands, and from there, Richard introduced me to you, and I started to come to Central Church. Well, I back up. Before I started coming to Central, you came by, if you recall, you and Richard came by my office for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, something like that, and shared the gospel with me, gave me homework and all that. And then from there, I made a decision that fall. Well, by then, it was a year and a half later, I'd been in the program, but I still I didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but I'd been through the 12 steps by that time. So I know that it worked for me, what the 12-step program is about. I knew it was working. When you baptized me in October of '98, was right in that time frame that bridge group is. Let me back up. The bridge group, we began, I guess, that summer of '97. I think that was correct. And so we were part of that, but it was so new, and I knew we were kind of feeling our way through that program. As we got stronger and stronger into it, we helped develop the 10 bridges, and they're the same principle as a 12-step program. And then from there, my growth in recovery just was really working with other men. I mean, I learned early on that working with others was vital. It's a cornerstone. There's a whole chapter working with others in the 12-step in the Alcoholics Anonymous book. So, my church attendance, the Deep Convictions book, the Life Talk over at Clyde's, everything worked hand in hand. I can see where the church and the 12-step program work hand in hand. It may not be for everyone, but for me, it was really necessary. And you were a great mentor at that time from the standpoint of just, Jesus is the cornerstone of my recovery. But the principle of AA can still provide a way of life that works for everyone.
Right, absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned early on in your journey, you were connected to New Horizons. I guess kind of maybe in some ways you were prescribed AA in a sense is something you needed to do, and then you did some volunteer. You said that was 10 weeks, but then you ended up doing it and involved with it for over a year. And some of that was even volunteering then, it sounded like you were saying, that kind of thing. And so one of the things that seems to have been an important principle in your journey has been making yourself available, volunteering, being engaged. I mean, I've known you for a long time. I know anytime an AA group's looking for somebody to come out and help or take a meeting or speak in a meeting, I mean, you pretty much say yes to any of those opportunities and figure out how you're going to do it later because you've had that kind of spirit since I've known you. And I guess I'm curious as to why is that volunteering spirit such an important part of your journey?
Well, as I say, I listened to a lot of speaker tapes in AA, and you can find them on YouTube. At the time, they were cassettes. That's how far back it goes.
Not 8-track tapes?
But the importance and the importance of working with others was emphasized to me on many fronts. From speaker tapes to the AA book, it speaks about it over and over, and it's emphasized over and over. I did my sponsor in AA had me volunteer at the central office early on. He had me come every Saturday morning to clean up. We clean up every morning once a week, and he had me to do that. I did this mainly through a willing spirit. I did not want to do some of these things. That's important as a recovery. To understand that you don't have to want to or feel like to do something in order to do it. You just have, in order to do it, you need to have willingness. But I had my accountability partner, my sponsor, who asked me to do these things. He guided me. He did it. He showed me the way. And then the same thing with taking meetings to Bradford, Pathfinders, Alabama Psychiatric Center, Crestwood when they had theirs, and then speaking to various groups. All of this is part of my recovery. In other words, in order to keep what I have, I've got to give it back. A great analogy that was given to me was, I have a cup and God fills it up. And instead of, taking from it and holding it and keeping it, I'm supposed to pour it out to help others, and God fills it back up. And I pour it out and God fills it up. And it's been working that way for all along. The volunteer concept is about half of the time, I don't have a strong giddy feeling about warmth about it, Tom. I just don't, and I still don't today. But I do a lot of things because it's the right thing to do. I know God is pleased with it. I know He teaches it in the Bible. It's in the AA book, and it's a way of life. So if I sit and wait to feel like doing something, a lot of times I won't get it done. But if I'll go ahead and do it, I always feel better afterwards. Plus, the benefit of what we've done is accomplished, and so there's a benefit for both me and everyone who's involved with it.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, I appreciate that spirit. I don't think there's a time I've ever asked you for something that you weren't quick to jump on that and agree to it, and I always appreciate that spirit. Know I can make that phone call to Greg, and I can count on that.
Well, you've been a great inspiration to me, Tom. I mean, you're the same way. You wouldn't say it out loud, but I'll say it for you. You do everything I've ever seen anyone ask you to do. Plus, you do it without it being asked. So you've been a great inspiration to me as well.
Well, I think it emphasizes, as you mentioned earlier, volunteering, being available for God's service for other people is ultimately the great reward to us.
Right.
I mean, God doesn't ask us to do it punitively, right? He asks us to do it because it's a blessing.
Right.
I know one of the things that's been an important cornerstone in your recovery is AA, being involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, over the years, and I know I originally got involved with the Bridge Group and stuff over kind of this issue that AA was kind of viewed as kind of becoming increasingly more secular and moving away from some of the God root and some of the Jesus focus. And so there's been kind of this in recovery, kind of this conflict sometimes between AA and Christ Center recovery programs. You've obviously been a strong Christian for a long time and have stayed active in AA. I'm interested in how you reconcile those things. Are they really at odds? Can they be more of a help, or are they, how do you reconcile that conflict?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked because I really want to address that. My recovery from March of '97 till October '98, when I was baptized into Christ, I had a year and a half in a 12-step program. Now, I've always been from the South, and my growing up, I knew who Jesus Christ was. I didn't know much about him, didn't have a relationship, but I know and knew. I just didn't have that relationship. I was basically afraid because of my behavior of God in a lot of ways, but because I know, and I walked through the 12 steps of AA, I got clean and sober through that, and I had a way of life outside of being in Christ that I know the 12-step program works. I know for a fact it works, and from experience. So when I was joined the church, baptized and joined the church, I saw how my relationship with God I could bring back to my home group, my relationship with Jesus, and share that. Now, in order to do it, I still have to practice the 12 steps. I have to honor the traditions and live those out. But I get 15, 20 minutes before the meeting begins that I can chit-chat about anything I want. I can talk about anything I want to after the meeting, during the hour that we have a chance to share for a few minutes. And if the topic of God or higher power comes up, I can share Jesus Christ all I want to. There's no condemnation to me or anyone else in there who believes and shares about their relationship with God, what it is. No one in my group has an issue with that. Not everyone believes in Jesus. Not everyone has a relationship with Jesus. But if we're able to share this again and again and again, then over a period of time, you would hope that influence has an effect on people. There's not, even though it's not a Christ-centered program, and it is by definition secular, I go back to this, is that as a Christian, I get to come to AA and share my experience, strength, and hope. And I've shared this many, many times with folks. Christ in Matthew 28 didn't say, go into all the world, baptize everyone, make disciples of others, except in AA now. Don't go to AA and do it. He didn't say that. He hung out with sinners, and I'm in the world. I'm not of the world. And so I take what I have, my relationship with Jesus, and I strongly believe in this 12-step program for those that are not in Christ, to get them clean and sober which also teaches them to have an open mind. That open-mindedness is what led me to listen to you and Richard. I mean, that's part of the problem. How does it work? HOW, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. Well, the willingness to have an open mind to what you're sharing is, they taught me to say, well, you can always say, well, you might be right. And if that's the case, then I can ponder over that. I'll give one quick example because I want to share this. There was a lady, she was a card-carrying member of American Atheists, the other AA. And for 2 years, and she told me this later, I didn't know it at the time, but I assumed it, but I would come into the program, come to the 6 o'clock meeting. She told me later, she would do, share with others, not directly at me, but with others, this idea of some kind of Christian bashing joke or story or this or that. And she did that to affect me. She told me later, because I was such a proponent of God. 2 years later, she called me one morning, and I didn't ever know the influence who it was. I never met the man, but she had at some point had an open mind, began to study with someone else. She called me one morning and said, I want to tell you 2 things, Greg. One, I want to make an amends for all the times I've been saying these things. I've been directing at you, and I'm sorry for that. And 2, last night I was baptized into Christ.
Wow.
And so, and I was so thrilled, still have a relationship with her today as a friend. And I don't know, but I believe in the process that the influence that we have is salt to these people and the light that we share. I don't know how God exactly had an influence on her through me, but I believe in the process of doing that. And there's been others I brought over to Life Talk, and there's been a lot that has happened that I share Christ to other people, Tom. And I don't believe that the program is anti-Christian. It's not. There are people in there who use vulgarity and that talk about certain things, but we also protect our group from certain ways of things. So you won't be bashed as a Christian coming in. You might not be popular, but that's not the point either. The point is recovery, and then from there share your faith if you get an opportunity.
Sure, right. No, I appreciate that. I know I've talked to a lot of guys who, AA kind of was obviously the way that they got sober so that they could have an open mind, so they could learn the things of God or learn the things of the Scriptures and ultimately come to a relationship with Jesus. So I think
a lot of truth in that.
That's a powerful example. And you mentioned earlier on about how for you, AA and the church have kind of worked hand in hand in support of your personal recovery. And I think I'd like you to maybe share more about that. I mean, because I've also spoken many times about it. I don't see where AA and the church, Christianity, are opposed or need to be opposed. I think there's some people in AA who are opposed to Christianity and some people in Christianity who might be opposed to AA. Mm-hmm. But I think the principles and the values actually work together well to help support a fuller recovery process. So I'm interested in kind of how that's worked for you and how you blend those things together.
Well, for one thing, I go to either 5 or 6 meetings, AA meetings a week. It takes an hour. And
so why do you go to so many? I mean, you're recovered, right?
Yeah,
why do you need to go to 5 meetings? You're not hanging on by dear life. You're not going from meeting to meeting to survive. Right. Why that many meetings?
Well, I mean, you've been saved for quite a long time. How come you keep coming back to that? The bottom line is that there's a whole chapter, and we talked about it earlier, Tom. There's a whole chapter in working with others. I don't, in and of itself, I don't want to say this and mislead anyone, but if I never went to another AA meeting, it's not that I would necessarily get drunk someday. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to take that chance for one. But 2 is, every night I get my cup filled back up by being there to give back to others. Just like y'all taught me in church, is that I come to, what can I bring to this group? I sponsor 4 or 5 men right now, and I see these guys at my home group. And so they call me, I see them at night, I share before or after the meeting with them. I've got 50, 80 friends and acquaintances that I know that we share with one another, and the fulfillment that you get just having a relationship with people that you trust, people that look up to you and that trust you, they see you living out this program. So I spend this time trying to give of myself. There's a lot of other things that go on that I won't go into detail about that I'm a part of, and it's all about giving and trying to give back. So, and I believe that and I've shared this out here when I brought the meetings out here to the men at His Way, is that when they leave here, after graduation day. It's kind of like you're leading up to this point, and I think it's necessary for them to have a graduation day and a recognition. But the thing is that after that setting done, it's kind of like anticlimactic. Once you've left here, then, well, now what? You've been so busy doing this, that, and other structure. Now what? I've always suggested to every one of them, again and again, if you'll come to a home group, get involved, develop relationships, get to know people, and then walk through the steps, and then maybe get to where you can share with people, then you have the advantage of, if you become a Christian, to be able to bring light into this program, and hopefully someone else can become baptized into Christ because you've been here and you've influenced them in some way. Not only that, but you get the opportunity daily to where that God removes, we talk about this, what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Not the spiritual condition, the maintenance of it. The maintenance of is coming to meetings, reading the material, praying to God, working with others, and giving back. So if we don't, I've never seen an alcoholic walk in front of my TV at home in my living room. I have to be, if I'm going to work with others and help and give back, I've got to be at a home group where new people come, and people that have been there a long time need help. Recently, there was a man that's got more time in the program than me. He come to me and he said, "Greg, look, I need to talk to you." He said, "I know you're a man of faith, and I've got an issue." He had a very, 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 very tragic, I won't go into details, very tragic situation happened. Then 3 months later, another tragic event, and he was distraught. And we talked for probably an hour. And since then, he mentioned it 2 nights ago that he had a conversation with someone, which was me, and the difference in what he had done for him. All it is I'm a vessel for God to be influenced in his life, someone he looked up to who knew had a connection to God in his mind. Right. And if I'm not there, how do I offer that? How do I give that? There is so much that there's just the 12-step program goes so deep into so many areas that if someone if they leave treatment wherever they're at, if they get involved, they can become not only work through the program, the steps, but get involved in people's lives to where that hopefully they have their esteem and their feeling day-to-day feel good, their joy, their serenity, all the words we use to describe a quality of life. They can learn to be trusted, and it falls on itself where you're trying to not only give, like you said earlier, we give, but ultimately we receive. The more we give, the more that God gives us. It works that way. It's been working that way for a long time for me.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I've seen in your life, obviously, and I think is part of the testimony you have, is that you've been so faithful to this for so long. You've built a reputation of credibility too, where people come to you because they see your steadfastness. You're not just showing up every now and then. You're not just popping in. You're not there because of, to keep you sober as much as it's about helping bless other people, which does then keep you sober. So it's a beautiful picture. Certainly even the picture Jesus had for all of us spiritually, that's what we do to maintain our own relationship with him.
Sure.
Well, one other thing I wanted to ask you about briefly, I know, you've been married to Kara for a while, and you've had a great relationship, and I admire that. And one of the things I think is interesting is, you both kind of met through this recovery journey. And I was just interested in how I know you're passionate. How does that impact your marriage? I mean, is Kara, you go to 5 meetings a week. She's going, "Why are you leaving home all the time? Why are you leaving me behind?" How does that passion, that commitment, how does that affect your marriage?
It's funny that you ask that because she's more involved than I am.
Oh my!
She goes as many meetings as I do. She facilitates 2 different women's retreats twice a year, and someone asked her to do a third. She's leaving, going to Atlanta here in 2 or 3 weeks to a women's conference. She sponsors 5 or 6 women. She was the head of the household in her home group, recovery home, before she moved in with me. We got married, then she moved in with me.
Appreciate you getting that lined up.
But she is doing deep convictions right now. She studied with Julia for a year and a half, and look, she doesn't have to work, but she spends 40 hours plus a week doing recovery related things. She goes to Best Life on Wednesday. Last night she was at Best Life. She goes Sunday night. She's doing a I mean, she does so much, Tom. I really don't even know what all that she's involved with. I mean, she's deeply, deeply involved.
So maybe the question would be better: do you get resentful of the fact that she's gone away from you more than you would prefer?
No, the truth of the matter is, I've never. When I met her, she only had 2 months in recovery when I met her. She came to my home group and I met her, and then I watched her, and I didn't know. I knew what little I knew. How much do you know with someone like that? And then I knew I wanted to hang out with her. I found her attractive, and I saw her passion. But then again, you don't know. You don't know. But we continued this journey, and as I watched her she would make choices that would not involve me. So to do a recovery theme of something or another, and I was like, I admire that. And as I look back, and I've told her this more than once, that she reminds me of me once I caught fire about recovery, about 4 to 5 months into it. She is, I'm so grateful and I admire it deeply. So we have a great relationship when it comes to recovery. We talk about it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. It's great to have that kind of partner and have that kind of passion together. So many times in marriages, one has a passion for one thing, one has a passion for something else, and so it doesn't bring you together, but you guys having a common passion for the Lord and then for ministry and AA is a powerful combination. I really appreciate that testimony.
Well, she's an artist, and paints and, and this, and I don't know what in the world she's doing down there. I have a basement full of stuff, and I just buy the canvas, and so she has her hobbies, and that's her hobbies.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up today, and I appreciate you coming in and being with us.
My pleasure.
I just thought if you had any further words of just encouragement. A lot of people listening to us or watching or thinking about how they could get involved in recovery. Obviously, we're focused on Christ-centered recovery. What would be your thoughts? I mean, obviously, you have a background experience in substance abuse that brought you into this, but for a lot of people that may not even, what advice, what encouragement would you have for people thinking about getting involved?
Well, let me say one thing is that here in Huntsville, we have a central office, we call it, and the number is 256-885-0323. Someone there can give you more information about our local 12-step program, different meetings for one. But to an individual, if I'm speaking to an individual, whether it's you or someone that you know, there is a lot that a 12-step program offers that it's hard to appreciate until you get involved with it. And just like any other organization, if you've come and have a little bit of experience and have a bad taste in your mouth about it, or heard things that it's not that way once you become involved. The more you give of yourself, the more time you give. Really, it takes probably at least 10 to 20 meetings to be involved and sit and listen to understand just what it's about. Recovery is available to all of us if we're in need of it, and I think that if you find yourself questioning whether or not you need some help, if you call that central office number, they can get you in contact with someone that can give you some of their own experience, strength, and hope.
Greg, again, I thank you for coming in today, and I thank you for being a dear friend of mine and great supporter of His Way over the years, and look forward to us continuing to work together and what God has in store for us as we serve Him together. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Tom.
If you'd like to learn more about His Way, we encourage you to check out our website at hiswayinc.org.